What's going on, Bills Mafia? What's going on? Welcome to Buffalo Late Night. I'm your host, Thomas DeLoss. Happy Victory Monday, even though it's really weird because everything was on Saturday, but it's fine. It's all good. Welcome to Buffalo Late Night on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network, presented by Picasso's Pizza. Treat yourself to the most flavorful pizza on game day. Picasso's, we are Buffalo Pizza, shipping local and nationwide. Order online today at picassospizza.net. Again, I am your host, Thomas DeLoss. Thank you for tuning in this evening, or if you're listening on Spotify, happy Tuesday. You're watching this show on all free or streaming platforms, including Spotify or YouTube. And if you're watching on Twitter right now, hop on over to YouTube. I tweeted out the link just a second ago. If you want to click it, you can. Come join the conversation. We'd love to have you. Love to talk to you. And tonight's show is basically a little bit different from the usual. Tonight, our special guests are you. Anybody who's watching, anybody who wants to hop right in, we want to hear from you guys. We want to hear what what you're thinking about in terms of the last, 14 games so far in the season. We want to know what you're thinking about the Buffalo Bills season so far, how they're doing, how you feel, what you're thinking about the season going forward, and what's your expectations. Before we do that, though, we're going to get right into it. We're going to get right to our specialist, our injury specialist, our guy BangedUpBills, Dr. Kyle Trimble. Kyle, what's going on, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. Good to talk to you again after being off last week. You've been sick.
That's right. Kyle, obviously we just came off of a pretty big win on a Saturday night against the Miami Dolphins and heading into a pretty big matchup against, the Chicago Bears. Who knows if it's even going to be played in Chicago at this point. That being said, how are we looking on injuries, Kyle?
It looks like it's starting to get better. There's still some guys dealing with injuries, but the biggest one coming out of Saturday's game is Mitch Morse with his concussion. What happened was he suffered a concussion with it was very early in the third quarter. It was like 14:38 or something like that. And what happened was he came pulling around, collided with his block, and then he played one more play, and then the special teams came on the field, and then they announced that he was being assessed for a head injury, later diagnosed with a concussion. So unfortunately, this is now his sixth publicly documented concussion since he came into the league back in, I think it was 2015. He's had 4 with the Chiefs. 3 with the Chiefs, and now 3 with the Bills there. So I know a lot of people are concerned about his concussion history, when he hangs it up and whatnot, but the Bills are definitely aware of the history. They knew that when they signed him back in 2019. They knew that when they extended him in March of 2022. So I don't expect that he's going to play against the Bears on Saturday, especially we just concussion. Sometimes guys come back a little bit sooner, but against the Bears to not have him, I'm okay with. If it was to Cincinnati, it's a different story, but give the guy a rest. It's been a long season. He's been working through an elbow injury all year too. It's unfortunate, but the team has had a game plan moving forward with him the entire time. So that's been the biggest one. And I think we just have to kind of see how this plays out. I have full faith that the team and Mitch know what with this. Other injuries of note were Boogie Basham dealing with a calf injury. there really wasn't anything on film to support what was there, but obviously they said he's day to day, which could mean he might not play on Saturday. That's what historically day to day is meant, maybe missing a game. And with the poor weather conditions at Soldier Field, that could play into where he's not going to get good enough footing, could be worse there. Going back to the other injuries, Ryan Bates suffered a medial ankle injury back against the Jets. He had somebody roll up on him. It looked like a high ankle sprain on video, but Jeremy Fowler of ESPN had said that he had a low ankle sprain, which kind of rules out the high ankle sprain, giving it to the medial ankle sprain. So he missed last week, but based off of Mitch Morse's injury and the fact that how the ankle injuries are, it's likely he'll be back, and he might be kind of forced back to play just because he has experience at center. And then the final injury is Jordan Phillips. If you recall, he suffered a right shoulder injury trying to chase down Mac Jones against the Patriots. He's missed the past 2 games. There was concern for a shoulder instability, a labrum tear, based off how he fell with the arm outstretched. And the timeline and the fact he hasn't even practiced kind of supports that, because we would see him start to return if there was an AC joint sprain. But the fact that they released Brandon Bryant this week in order to bring back Ike Bacher from the PUP list suggests that Phillips might be back this week too here. So guys are certainly getting better. And then last, Von Miller had a lateral meniscus tear. Now he has ACL tear, though that's, I feel like, old news. So he's on the mend, and it just, the law of average has not been kind to the Bills at all this season, but still number 1 in the AFC with 11-3 record. It's really incredible.
Right. Now, obviously, there's some. We just saw that Ike Bucker came back. Do you have any anticipation at this point? Would you guess, or at least take a shot in the dark as to what's going on with Micah? Would it be more of, if they get to like the AFC Championship Super Bowl, that's when they kind of look at things? Or, I mean, even then, is it still too much?
God, I know Joe Biscaglia really lit a match under that one there. But even then, when he had the injury, there was that thought. I feel like when you look at playoffs, because that'll be the 4-month mark. I think it was division round or wild card. It would be the 4-month mark for him for the surgery. And we know that the fusion of the bones starts happening around 3 months. So it's just going to come down to how comfortable the surgeons are and how comfortable the team is and whatnot, knowing he's in the contract. There's a lot of variables to play there. It's one of those things that if everything's going perfectly and it's the playoffs and he's going to make a big difference maker, sure, let's go for it. I mean,
right.
Knowing how the contracts all line up and whatnot, but normal situations tell you that it's not going to happen, but this might not be normal for the Bills, and they might say, forget it. Let's do this. Things are safe enough in there. Let's try this. So we should get some better idea probably close to week 18, the first round of playoffs, if they're going to do something like that.
Gotcha. Now, the one final thing I really have is Josh Allen, obviously, with his injury, he said that it wasn't so much that it was going to get better, and it really wouldn't get worse. What it seems at this point, like what he's saying, is that it's more of just kind of pain management or just kind of getting through it. Does it seem to you, based on what's going on, not that it's getting better, but maybe that they're finding ways to help mitigate the pain for him, maybe with different, stretching, or is there something that he can do? Because it seemed like this past game, he really, it seemed like his throwing is a little bit more fluid. He was a little bit more comfortable than he was in the past couple weeks.
Definitely. He did look a lot more crisp. He looked more like the Josh Allen of old. Like he could zip PRP injection. He said that on the Pat McAfee show. We knew that the doctors were resistant on him playing because he said it was 2 to 4 weeks when they first saw the scans there. So we know it's a real injury. I don't think anybody's questioning it at that point, especially with the brace he was playing with, which I noticed he's not playing with anymore, which is surprising, but hey, that's his choice. I'm sure he's still using the hyperbaric chamber. I'm sure he's still doing any type of strengthening in the area they can, because Sal Capaccio, WGR, noted this. If a guy is on the injury report, though he's practicing full, he's getting some type of treatment, which could affect the repetitions, dictate limited, full, whatnot. So he's still getting treatment on this elbow, which is important to note that he's still on there. So I'm sure he's getting every tool available in there that could help out with healing and make sure that they can manage the pain there. So they have so many different things. I posted up a video. Steve Smith, formerly of the Panther, through on a YouTube series a few months ago back during training camp, and they took a tour of the training facility, and they got to see a lot of different things they're using in the facility. So like they have the hyperbaric chamber. I know that they have ultrasound, which I'm not a fan of, but there is some clinical significance to that maybe help it out with things with healing. They have I think red light therapy might help. But really just I'm forgetting all the other stuff there that they could use to help really accelerate the healing, and just the fact that they can do it more often than a normal person could all help facilitate that healing, at least try to make it more manageable. So it's impressive how he's played through the injury despite everything. But Josh Allen isn't human. We figured that much out.
Right. And it looks like Carl's asking, does Josh need to have surgery on his elbow after he finishes celebrating his Super Bowl victory in February?
I don't believe so. The only reason I could see that is if he were to re-injure the elbow, and then that's a whole nother conversation. I don't foresee, based off what we know, they said it was, a partial tear of the UCL ligament. Talking about like a grade 2, grade 1, that range there, but they said that there's some tearing in there from what some of the reports were saying. So I'm sure it's scarring down, healing up by now. The only thing I could think of is if there was a re-injury to the area, or B, if he had like some type of loose bodies in there, bone chips, stuff like that. But I think that I'm not saying we would hear about that, but I think we would start seeing that affected in his play a little bit. But his play has been improving, not kind of erratic like we had seen previously.
Gotcha. Anything else that you've got in terms of the Bills or the Browns, the Bears with the upcoming matchup on Saturday?
I know Justin Fields has been working back through an AC joint sprain. I can't recall if it was his throwing shoulder or not. I know he got dinged up again this week, but he's been basically putting the Bears on his back and trying to play through everything, even though they're 3-10. I know they lost some other key contributors early in the season, which has been really unfortunate. It's contributed to their 3-10 record. So I haven't been able to dig too much into their injury status yet, but I don't know. You're 11-3. You're going to a stadium. I don't want to say this should be a gimme game, but the Bills should be going in there and make it no doubt of who the better team is when they go in there. So regardless of injuries.
Right. Well, I definitely appreciate you as always, and go get some sleep, go get some rest, and I don't know. I think we'd have a show next Monday. I don't see why we wouldn't. It's the weekend after, but if anything goes and doesn't happen, then we'll speak. But as for always, Kyle, we appreciate you. You can check out all of Kyle's content at BangedUpBills.com or on Twitter at BangedUpBills.
Right, thank you.
We'll see you, brother.
See ya.
Now, folks, obviously we are doing a show that's a little bit different than the usual show, because it is just myself, literally just me this week. And that's perfectly fine, because ideally what's going to happen is we're going to have you guys help me out. We're going to have you guys talk about what you're thinking. And I can't seem to get this dang thing right. I'll have to wait till my brother comes back and he can fix it all. Needless to say, obviously we have a lot going on in terms of this coming week. The Bills are going to Chicago for a huge matchup. And when I say huge, every game at this point going into the end of the season is big. The Bills just need to continue on. They need to make sure that they're finishing off this matchup and finishing off this season and getting that number 1 seed. I know there was a lot of conversations, and rightfully so, that the biggest thing right now is getting that number 1 seed, because you have to think, do you want the best matchup or do you want the number 1 seed? And countless people, including Damian Woody, who used to play for the Jets, said himself, you want that number 1 seed. You want one last game to have to get to the Super Bowl. You just want to make it as easy as entirely possible on yourself to basically get to the promised land, get to where you want to be. The other part about that is when you're going into the latter part of the season, it's all about what you can do and putting yourself in the best possible position to be successful. No, obviously this past Saturday we did beat the Dolphins. That was a huge matchup, a big game for the Bills to not only continue their path to the number 1 seed, but on top of that, holding on to the division lead. And part of that, we had some huge stats. I mean, Josh Allen, 25 for 40, 304 yards, 4 touchdowns. Big game for him. Really kind of getting back into that groove, that guy that we thought that he was at one point. And obviously we had some some kind of hiccups early in the season or middle part of the season. And then on top of that, 10 carries, 77 yards. It's one of those games that you just kind of felt like Josh Allen was carrying the load. He was doing everything he could to put them in the best possible position. Really make it so that, nobody had to worry. Make it so that the team literally knew they were going to win. And if you look for the most part of the game, I mean, there was a win probability meter they showed on ESPN's website. You can actually see that for the most part of the game, minus a little bit where the Bills were kind of hiccuping, the Bills were in charge. And that's what happens when you have Josh Allen, right? When you have Josh Allen, things just are a little bit easier. Now, obviously, looking at the AFC division, you got the Bills sitting at the top, and then it gets a little murky, right? You got Miami at 8-6, and then New England and the Jets at 7-7. Really, what it's going to come down to is how this actually pans out for the Bills if they can continue, because I mean they do have basically a 3-game lead on the Dolphins, but it's not that easy, right? You obviously got to make sure that you finish and take care of everything to secure those, and make sure that you're doing everything you can to put yourself in the best possible position. Um, but obviously, one thing I totally forgot to do. I'm a little discombobulated right now. We're doing our best. My brother, his internet just completely just shit the bed, so we're making do for what we have here right now. Which, by the way, guys, if you are in the comments or if you're watching the show right now, feel free to go hop on and join the conversation. I'm going to actually put this right in here for everybody. Uh, Feel free to join the conversation. Click on that link. It'll give you the opportunity to join the show. You can call, you can talk to me. Tell me what you guys think about the show. Tell me what you guys think, not about the show, but the season, and what you think going forward. But obviously, we talked to Dr. Kyle Trimble from BangedUpBills. As a doctor, Kyle does a lot of things to make sure that his patients are put in the best possible position. But aside from that, as a parent myself, and my son's going to be born in just about a month, the biggest thing for me is to make sure I have the best possible dentist, and that's my guy, Dr. Zach Mills, my cousin, from from a dentist for kids. That is his practice. A dentist for kids offers individual dental treatment for kids of all ages by providing a relaxed, fun, and encouraging environment. Dr. Zach's goal is to help your child build confidence in their smile and with their overall dental health. Dentist for Kids is currently accepting new patients, and they participate with most major insurances. If you visit Dr. Zach, mention Buffalo Late Night for $25 off your choice of a custom whitening kit or electric toothbrush. Call today to set up an appointment with Dr. Zach and his team, 585-538-7230. You can also go to bflolate-night.com. If you go there, you can click on his logo to take you right to his page, tell you all about that stuff. And Ian, if you can fix this layout for whatever's going on, I have no idea. I can't fix it. I don't know what's happening. But we're actually going to go right into our weekly segment. If you want to go ahead and kick that off.
Damn!
Tonight's segment is tonight's damn award recipient goes to a man that can't seem to dodge the ire of football gods, Mr. Matt Ryan. A man well known for blowing a 28-3 lead in Super Bowl 51 against the Patriots has seemingly done it again. Facing off against the Colts this past Saturday, he had a 33-point lead into halftime against the Vikings that, to quote Silky Johnson, looks bombed out and depleted. When the third quarter started, however, things changed to an all too familiar soundtrack for Mr. Ryan as Minnesota started scoring and Indianapolis, well, didn't. In 2 quarters of play, the Vikings put up 36 points to tie the Colts going to the final minute of the game, and Matt Ryan simply could not score to save his life. With the clock winding down to 0, Minnesota kicked a game-winning field goal and set the NFL record for the largest comeback in history, beating out our Buffalo Bills by a single point. For managing to stall out for 2 quarters while he watched his team's ESPN calculated 99.9% chance of winning evaporate into a notch on the loss column, we commend Matt Ryan, Indy's dog shit defensive performance, and some mind-boggling poor coaching, play calling, and give them this week's coveted damn award. So there's that. Obviously, we saw that game. What a mess. And to be honest with you, in my personal opinion, I think it shouldn't be the greatest comeback because the Colts are terrible. At least when the Bills won the greatest comeback, they were playing against a very, very good Houston Oilers team run by a very good quarterback in Warren Moon. But whatever. They don't look at that. They just look at numbers, and it's just, yeah, who cares? Obviously, this Saturday we are going to play potentially in Chicago. That's another big thing. We don't even know if they're going to play in Chicago. There's a huge storm coming into Chicago, so we're going to have to actually see what's going on there. But they're going to be playing against a potentially Nathan Peterman led Chicago Bears team. So we'll have to see right there. But, the big thing, and I kind of just want to talk about this right now. I'm going to kind of go off the cuff a little bit more relaxed because my tension right now is nuts. Which, by the way, want to give out a huge shout out to my grandfather. I think my grandparents are probably watching this right now. Grandma, Grandpa, I love you guys. Hope you're doing well. Grandpa, go eat something. The big thing with the Buffalo Bills right now, it just comes down to making sure that they do what they need to do to finish this off, right? And the big part about that is doing things in the game that benefit the team, right? And a big part of that is not making clerical mistakes. A big thing that we've been seeing is honestly just a lot of holding penalties. You saw it with Roger Saffold. You've seen it with Deion Dawkins. You've seen just stupid mistakes where Cam Lewis runs into a punter. That's the stuff that you just can't do. You just can't, and that's something that we just need to get better. Let's see. If both Morse and Bates are out, Van Roten would be center. Who would be the better choice at starting right guard, Quessenberry or Bodker? To be honest with you, I think Bodker. I don't know if Van Roten would be center. I mean, he has been center. Bodker, I believe, can also play center. Um, it's hard to say. I would probably. I mean, Quessenberry did pretty well this past week at right guard. Um, I don't know. I think Bodker probably plays center, to be honest with you. But it seems to me that Bates probably will play if I had to guess. I don't know that for sure, but that would be my guess. Just like Richard said, Quessenberry did play really, really well. But the big part about this game, obviously, going into this is you just need to make sure that you take care of business. You've seen, and if we look at the Bears right now, the Bears schedule so far this season, they're not good. And especially if it's Peterman, this is a game that they should win handily. Handily. Because right now, if you look at, let's see, the Bears this season so far lost 27-10 against the Packers, 20-12 against the against the Giants, 12-7 against the Commanders, 49-29 against the Cowboys, 31-30 against against the Lions, 31-10 against the Jets, 25-20 against the Eagles. And it's just been a mess. They really have not. They beat the Patriots, which I mean, a lot of teams do, but for the most part, they've just gotten absolutely beaten up this season. It just hasn't been that good for them, and so this is one of those games that you got to take care of. And like I said, you're 11-3 right now. You're in line, which I'll tell you the what Davis Mills did, running like he did with the ball in his hands the way it was. They should have beaten the Chiefs. The Chiefs again get lucky. It's unbelievable how lucky the Chiefs truly are. Unless Lance the Spoken's watching, and then he'll tell you that they just get the worst possible luck. But truthfully, right now you have teams vying for that number one seed with the Bills. Bills don't have an easy shot. It's not like the Eagles. I think the Eagles can lose every game to the end of the season and still be the number one seed. They don't have that opportunity with the Bills. You got the Chiefs right there. On top of that, you got the Bengals that are kind of getting back into things. It's going to be a tough season, truly a tough season for the rest of them, and you really got to make sure you're taking care of business, and that really starts this weekend. If you look at this Bears team right now, let's see what their stats are. Take a look on how they're doing so far this season, which based on what I'm seeing is not very good. The Bears right now points for 290 points for as 19th out of 32 points against 358. They are the 30th ranked team in the NFL in points allowed. Bad. It's just not a good situation. The Bears, unfortunately, are just not having a good season whatsoever. By the way, guys, you obviously see that link right there. Feel free to hop right in. Tell me what you guys are thinking about this season going forward. If not, we'll end the show early, and that's perfectly fine by me because I'll go to bed and get ready for tomorrow. But Obviously, with this season, you're just seeing that the Bears in totality just aren't doing well. Justin Fields is absolutely their entirety of their offense and quite frankly, the entirety of their team. And without him, they just haven't been able to do a whole heck of a lot. I think it comes down to a couple big things. If the Bills can continue their defensive prowess, I think there's just no questions asked about them being able to stop this team. Nathan Peterman, unless he has the game of his life, which I would not foresee happening, the Bills should be able to keep him in check. And it seems to me like Josh Allen's kind of just starting to get in stride. And you have noticed in past seasons that Josh Allen in the latter part of the year tends to get into a rhythm. And if that happens, watch out. Because right now, Josh Allen, I mean, he put up 300 yards passing, 70 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. You could see that he was moving the ball at will. I think that's just something that if you can get him into a good place, making him feel comfortable, I think it'll be a good time for the Bills. On top of that, you got to get Devin Singletary more involved. That's something that you just have to do, right? If you're going to be playing Buffalo football in this or in January and February in Orchard Park, you're going to be that number one seed. You need to be able to run the ball. Whatever they need to do to protect themselves, it's got to be a situation where they're putting themselves in the best possible position, making sure that they are protecting the ball, and that starts with running it, right? Lola, you're right. What about the blizzard in Chicago? This can be bad for both teams. I mean, I suppose. I mean, the one thing that bad weather does, and you saw this for the Bears early in the season, bad weather can neutralize a good team. So, yes. But the problem is the Bears are really bad, especially without Justin Fields. If they don't have Justin Fields, their team is just putrid. So, the hope is with Nathan Peterman that the mistakes are just, oh, excuse me, the mistakes will just outweigh the actual storm itself. Bears are a good running team and terrible passing team. So do they play extra linebacker AJ Klein instead? I would be surprised if they take Taron Johnson, even in the game against a Dolphins team where you knew they were probably going to have to run. Quite frankly, all week the expectation was that the storm was going to be there. I mean, we kind of knew that, right? The storm didn't hit when they thought it didn't hit till 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and they still, even with that, the anticipation that the snow was going to happen, Raheem Mostert, who was really fast and beat the hell out of the Bills this past Saturday, they still didn't get out of nickel all that much. I mean, mind you, it didn't help that AJ Klein got a concussion right out of the gate or got injured right out of the gate. I think it was a concussion right on the opening kickoff. Uh, if he was playing, would they have stayed? It's entirely possible. I could see them actually doing it. I think if you look at, I think it's just going to be a game where honestly, if Justin Fields can't go, I really believe the Bills will be able to win this game pretty easily. Because if you look early in the season with what the Bears did, they weren't able to move the ball. Excuse me. I keep yawning really badly tonight. If Justin Fields is not playing, and let's take a look at Justin Fields' stats real quick. Justin Fields so far in this season, and he really had started ramping it up. In the beginning, the first game of the season against the 49ers, 121 yards with 2 touchdowns. And then he really started picking it up with total touchdowns around mid-October, where he was having 2 a game, 3 a game, 2 a game. The last couple of weeks has been a little bit more rough, but he's playing some top end talent. Excuse me. The Eagles, the Packers, Lions are playing well. Dolphins, Cowboys. Um, so I think the big thing is if he's not playing, the Bills will honestly be fine. And I truly believe that. But if you take a look, the big part of this conversation for this show was talking about the season up until this point. We're 11-3. And the one thing I do want to talk about, and I think it's important as Bills fans that we talk about this, uh, it's never easy, right? In the NFL nowadays, it's just not easy. Jerry, I keep going to Jerry Ostrowski because he said it, and Jerry played on the team in the 90s. And for a guy that was a 10th round pick, he worked his ass off. So for a guy that had a career as long as he did, I trust his opinion because he worked to where he worked to get to where he wanted to be. Jerry or I'm forgetting Schottenheimer, his coach in Kansas City, they didn't think he was good enough. Well, guess what? Jerry didn't believe it, and he went to Buffalo and he made a hell of a career out of it. He said himself that it's not easy to win in the NFL. So that being said, with where we're at in the NFL and where we're at right now at 11-3, we have to be a little bit more understanding of what's going on, right? I know there's a lot of expectations. Oh my god, I don't think I've ever yawned this many times in one show. Um, the one thing we got to think about is there's never been this many injuries since Sean McDermott's been the coach, right? It just hasn't. It hasn't happened. The Dolphins game early in the season, start of the fourth quarter, there was only 34 available players. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. 34 available players. I mean, the Bills were trying to get themselves in position to be successful, but unfortunately, when you have that few players, you can't be successful, right? You just can't. You can't have a team with a depleted roster and expect to be successful. Guess what? The Bills have loaded their roster in such a fashion and made it really so depth prevailing that the Bills continue to be successful. And that's something that I think is a feather in the cap of Sean McDermott. A lot of times, and people have said it, and I've sat there and listened to it, that people say like, the Bills are having a bad game, and of all fan bases, the Bills are the ones that stand right on the edge of that cliff, getting ready to jump when things go crazy, right? Bills have a bad game, and Bills fans are calling for the head of everybody and their mother. They called for Sean McDermott a couple times this season, even though the guy is 60-35 all time as a Bills coach with a 63% winning clip. I mean, at what point do we sit there and say, well, the guy's a damn good coach? Because he is. Very few coaches could do what he's done this season with the sheer amount of talent that's been off the board. I mean, you have to think. This team is 11-3. They're the number one seed in the AFC. They're the number one seed in the AFC East. They're literally one of the best teams in the NFL, and they have had so many injuries. Josh Allen's playing with an injury. I mean, let's think about that. You're playing with such a loaded roster that they can't even stay healthy. That's one of those things that you have to take a step back and say, I know it's tough sometimes as Bills fans not to look at it and have that 20-year playoff drought just kind of sitting up here in the back of our minds, right? And think, well, things are going sour. It's got to be the end of the world, right? I mean, I myself even knew at some points that when it was going rough, you always kind of just waited for the other shoe to drop, right? You were waiting for everything to go bad. And that's tough. It's a tough mentality to have as a sports fan to always think of the worst. But as a Bills fan, it was hard not to. Because I mean, realistically, for the longest time, as a Bills fan, even when things were going right, I mean, I remember we played the Patriots. I don't remember how many years ago, but it was 21-0 in Foxborough in the first half. Everybody's like, oh man, this is amazing. But then in the back of your mind, you're like, well, let's get to the second half where we're going to lose it, right? That's how it was. That was the mentality. But here's the thing. Here's the difference. You got Josh Allen, folks. That's the truth. That's the God's honest truth. That's everything and anything. Josh Allen will take this team to the promised land and he will win us a Super Bowl. That's not hyperbolic. That's not me just saying it to say it. That's not me just trying to get clout or, whatnot. It'll happen. Josh Allen will absolutely win a Super Bowl with the Buffalo Bills. I believe it. I mean, why shouldn't you? That's one of those things that if you look at this team in totality, the Bills are that good. I mean, guys are coming back to come and play on this team. Look at Jordan Phillips, Shaq Lawson, John Brown, Cole Beasley, right? How many guys just keep coming back? Because why? Because they're good. Because we want to play here. Because it's a culture driven environment. I remember, a number of years ago, I think it was probably like 2014. I listened to Shope the Bulldog on the way home from Bills games, and they'd sit there and scoff at the idea of culture. I mean, obviously, why wouldn't you? Rex Ryan's the head coach. Doug Whaley's the general manager, right? But let's be real. When it comes down to it, culture is everything. And that's what you've seen on this team. They've built it. They've built this franchise in such a manner that they've been able to withstand. They've been able to withstand everything, you know? I mean, that's something that has to be talked about. If you don't have this culture, do you be, or do you, excuse me, are you capable of withstanding everything that's happened? I mean, realistically, are you? Because as of this point, you've seen some teams that have gone through what we've gone through, and it's just been an absolute tire fire. But I think realistically, if you sit down and you think about it, right? You think about what's happened so far on this Bills team. I think if you look at everything in totality, the reason the Bills have been successful, I mean, albeit Josh Allen, is because of culture, because of what they've built here. And I think that's something that if you look at it over a long stretch of things, I mean, look at what happened back in the day when Marv Levy was the head coach, right? Marv Levy, and again, I'm going to bring up Jerry Ostrowski and John Fina because they talked about it. Marv Levy made it enjoyable, right? Training camp wasn't in Marty Schottenheimer. Marty Schottenheimer would beat the hell out of him in training camp. That wasn't Marv Levy. Yeah, I mean they had the bickering bills and whatnot, but those were a band of brothers. It's by no happenstance or just sheer luck that they won or made it to 4 Super Bowls. You don't have that happen without a very, very, very talented but cohesive roster, right? And there's culture to that. And then I think if you look at it, what's going on with the Bills right now, they've look at what they've done. The last how many years so far, you've just seen in totality that the Bills have been successful over and over and over again, you know? And that's something that also is just based on what they've done. And so if we take a look, right, and we look at this season, because the season's had its ups and downs, you saw them lose to the Jets, Dolphins, and the Vikings. Now, mind you, all three of those teams winning records. All three of them. You got what? Dolphins at 8-6, Jets at 7-7, Vikings at what? I think they're 10-3. Is that right? Let's see. Vikings right now are 11-3. So, in totality, what do you got? Why am I not being able to move? They're 25-19. Is that right? You can figure that out. I don't know. I can't do math. That's why I married a math teacher. Uh, Needless to say, the big thing about what's going on right now with the Buffalo Bills and what's happened this season, is they've just been successful. They've been successful because of the fact that they've built it the right way. And if you look at so far the season, with everything they've encountered, they've been able to really just get through all these storms and be able to continually grow and build and stack wins. That's the biggest thing because you saw last year at this time they were 7-6, and yeah, they were good. They were really talented, but there were some really bad losses, losses that they shouldn't have had happen. But now you're seeing they're winning games that they are supposed to win, and that's important too. And I think that's a big tell all about what this season has been. Bone chilling temps Saturday in Chicago. Let's take a look at the Chicago temperatures. Chicago temps Saturday. Let's see. Oh boy, that is cold. Wow. Saturday in Chicago. I love Chicago, by the way. If you've never been to Chicago, get to Chicago. It's a beautiful city. Saturday in Chicago, we are looking at the game's at 1 o'clock, which is good. It's gonna be 9 degrees. 9 degrees, ladies and gentlemen, on Saturday. That's not good. That's gonna be pretty darn cold. And Chicago is windy as all hell. Well, here's the thing. Ralph Wilson Sr., which by the way, I love your name. 26-16. That's the total record of those three teams that we played that we've lost to. I don't know if Justin Fields is going to play. It doesn't seem like he's going to play, at least from what I've read. Bean had better invest money into offensive line prior to next season. I think that's probably going to be right at the top. I think you're probably gonna see them not only invest in that, but also getting another wide receiver. I just don't know if they truly believe in Gabe. I mean, here's the thing. Let's extrapolate a little, right? Because I love the idea of what could potentially happen next season. Obviously, we still want to stay kind of in tune with this season. But if you talk about it, right, how do we know that they don't think Gabe Davis is doing well, right? Gabe Davis is in his third year. And if we take a look at Gabe Davis this season, right, his stats so far are really good. They're actually really good. They're not really good. They're good. They're he's doing well this season. I know we have this anticipation that he was supposed to do really really well this season, and though it hasn't necessarily been a record breaking year, he's still doing well in totality. I mean, his first season, 62 targets, 35 receptions, 599 yards, 7 touchdowns. 2021, 63 targets, 35 receptions, 549 yards, 6 touchdowns. This year, 77 targets, 42 receptions, 752 yards, 6 touchdowns with 3 games remaining. Gabe Davis could potentially be over 1,000 yards receiving, and we could have 2,000-yard receivers on the Bills. So I think we got to maybe slow the roll on Gabe Davis. I know we all wanted him to, be. I think it's just he's been so up and down. He hasn't been very consistent. One game he'll have 100, next game he'll have 12 yards. And that's tough. It's tough for Josh, which I think probably why they brought back Cole Beasley, so they have more of a consistency there. But back to what I was saying in terms of this season, I think if you look at what's going on, right? And by the way, Carl, I agree wholeheartedly. I think if you look at this season, what Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have done in making sure this team as a whole is successful can never be understated. Right? If you look at what they've built as a team, they've been incredibly successful. And I don't think it's necessarily by happenstance or, if it's just they've kind of stumbled upon it. They've done it that way and they've been patient. I mean, look at what the Buffalo Sabres are doing right now. The Buffalo Sabres and Kevin Adams. I know a lot of people want them to go trade for a big name player, right? Bring in maybe not Shishturkin, Jacob Chickering. Right? They want to bring in Jacob Chickering and get another really, really nice defenseman, or bring in another forward. But I don't think they want to do that, right? I don't think Kevin Adams and Donnie Granado want to do that. I think what they want to do is what Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have done, and they've built it steadily. They've had a plan, right? Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have had a plan, and they've done it, and they've built it really in a very successful manner. Because the thing about it is, and like I've said, you don't get to 11-3 with as many injuries as they have with a shitty roster. Excuse my language. You just don't. And that's something that we have to talk about. Guys, stop getting so mad at the Bills all the time. I know it's frustrating. I know games are tough and it's not always easy, but you're never going to blow out every team. The Dolphins are really, really good, period. I know that's hard to talk about. The Bills are a good team, but there's a lot of good teams. The NFL is built in parity. The NFL is built that other teams can win week in, week out. Look at what happened. The Colts started 33 points. The Vikings won. Look what happened with I don't know if the Raiders and Patriots game can speak to exactly what this is. The NFL is a wild, wild, wild game. I mean, every single week you just don't know what's going to happen. The Texans look like they were going to win, and then Davis Mills fumbles, and the Chiefs, of course, win. It's like this every week. Everything's up and down. It's all over the place. You never know what's going to happen, and it's just the consistency of it all is just baffling, right? And I think that's the biggest part about the NFL is you just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, look at the Bills season. They've had more primetime games all over the place. Game moved to Detroit. This game could be moved based on a storm in Chicago. They might not be able to get there. I mean, come on. What the Bills have been able to do, and as successful as they've been, should be, I mean, mimicked and applauded and studied. Truthfully. What the Bills have done this season is baffling for what they've endured. The injuries, the weather, the BS that they've just ran into every single turn of the way. I think the Bills deserve a lot of credit, and Sean McDermott deserves a lot of credit. And I think we need to, the final part, right? The encapsulation of everything I was saying and where I was going along the long yellow brick road I was going through. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. And I want to implore people that are watching, enjoy this experience, folks. Right? I'm turning 35 in like 2 weeks. 35. The Bills drought initially started when I was going into 5th grade and ended when I met my wife. Let me repeat that for you. It started when I went into 5th grade and ended on my first date with my wife. The NFL and everything that goes along with it, and life in and of itself, is fleeting. Remember that. The NFL is fleeting, and just the same, and I'm sure for a lot of older fans that watched Jim Kelly, in the moment you thought this would last forever, that Jim Kelly would always be there, and he's gone, and he's been gone for 30 years. And just as soon as we get comfortable with Josh Allen, he will be gone as well. And we're about to see the end of Tom Brady because you're watching it right now unfold in front of your eyes. So, my friends, I tell you emphatically, enjoy this shit while it's happening. Enjoy the experience of Josh Allen. Enjoy watching him play. Enjoy this team. Because here's the thing, it's going to be gone eventually. And then you're going to sit there and say, why was I so mad? Why was I so angry when I was watching the Bills play? Why was I so frustrated at an 11-3 team? Why? Nobody knows why, because there's no reason to be mad. This team is 11-3. Yeah, they do some dumb shit, but who cares? What are we missing out on? You want to be another team? You want to be the Texans? Like, no. We are incredibly blessed to have a team as talented as this one. Remember that. Remember that when you turn on the game on Saturday at 1 p.m. and maybe a drive doesn't go as planned and the Bears get the ball off of us or an interception happens for whatever reason. That's not the end of the world, and the Bills are not a bad team. Things happen. The NFL is a parody, and these are all professional athletes that are very good at their jobs, minus Nathan Peterman. So that being said, I'm going to close out the show because I have had none of you call, and that is entirely fine because I could talk till my face turns blue. Guys, what I just want to say, and I'm gonna be very short and sweet and try to be profound in a moment where I don't necessarily know if I can do it very well, but in kind of what goes on with being a sports fan, right? Life is very short. Being a Bills fan it happens quick and it's gone and it's fleeting. And just like life is very fleeting and life is precious and life is important, make sure you're taking care of each other. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Life just is so quick. And make sure you tell your loved one, your family, your loved ones that you care and you love them. And it's reach out to those people that matter most to you and tell them that you love them and that they are important. And most of all, enjoy this week. Enjoy Christmas. I hope all of you watching, anybody that listens tomorrow on Spotify or checks this out later in the week, enjoy your Christmas. Enjoy your New Year's. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday. From all of us here at Buffalo Rumblings and myself, my brother Ian, we wish you guys all a very Merry Christmas, a very Happy New Year. I hope everything goes well. Hope this Saturday the Bills pull out a very big victory against the Chicago Bears and get safe travels to and from. But we're going to do this like we always do this, folks. We're going to start this just like we finish it. Go Bills.
The Bills make me wanna.